Welcome to this special broadcast on CNBC TV 18. I'm Shireen Bhan. Veteran industrialist Ratan Tata has left behind a legacy that's etched in the history of India, from being a global business icon to a philanthropist to an animal lover. Tata donned many roles in his life. The biography, Ratan Tata, A Life, traces his journey from his lonely childhood to his first job in the Tata Group to helming Tata Sons as chairman. And it also includes lesser-known stories about the challenges that he faced in school, his job as an architect, his first serious relationship, and more. Retired bureaucrat Thomas Matthew first met Ratan Tata about 3 decades ago, but it was only in 2018 that he decided to write his story. He's interviewed over 130 people whose lives Ratan Tata touched. To tell us more about the man, the life, the legacy, and the untold stories, we're joined by the author himself. Mr. Matthew, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. What an absolute pleasure it is to have you back on the channel. And congratulations on this tome. It's quite the book. And I want to understand from you, you've known Mr. Tata going back 3 decades.
That's right.
It was 2018 that you decided to put this down in words. Why?
It's not me who decided. Actually, it's by chance. Let me explain to you what happened. In 2017, he had come to Rashtrapati Bhavan as the distinguished invitee of our president, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. So he was there for almost 2 days, more than a day. And we spent a lot of time together. We got socially close. You know, I've been meeting him very frequently since 1994, many times. Right. And as you know, the Ministry of Finance, he used to come there as the member of the Captains of Industry.
Right.
So we had this interaction, but in 2017, we spent a lot of time together. Then I was in Mumbai along with my son, George, who's in the Foreign Service. So he says, I want to see Mr. Tata. I want to see if he's for real. So I said, you just can't go to him and see him. So I just picked up the phone and asked sir, I said, sir, can I come and see you? Because my son is pestering me. He says, he wants to see you in person. I want to see if you're the real Ratan.
Yeah.
So I took up the phone and called him, and he said, okay, come over for dinner if you have the time. That's how humble he is. That's his level of humility. So in the evening we went, and for 3 hours my son and he got chatting, and he gave us snapshots of his life, which I was overhearing. I found that really exciting. So I said, don't you think you should write your autobiography? So the spur of the moment he turned around and said, Thomas, I'm not going to write. I can't write it. If you want to write, you write my biography. And that's how it started. You know, it is music to my ears. I wanted to ask him a second time, did you say that? But I said, I'm not going to do that. I want to take the chance.
Not going to take a chance, just go with it.
Go with it. And then started the journey to unravel the complexity of the most simple man you can ever meet.
That's a very nice way of putting it, the complexity of the most simple man. And, you spent, what, over 140 hours with Mr. Tata, interviewing him.
Right.
Probably much more than even his closest sort of colleagues and friends perhaps have spent. And, what we know from public persona, public perception, is the man who came in, who sort of brought together this very diverse and disparate conglomerate and made it a cohesive whole. But what, to your mind, has been the most standout success of Mr. Tata?
See, if you look at it from the business point of view, let me tell you, he became chairman in 1991, March 25. That is a time when there was also this policy of Narasimha Rao, Manmohan Singh government to have the economic liberalization. So he inherited from JRD, as you said, a disparate group of companies piloted by equally capable stalwarts, not so favorably inclined towards Ratan, as you know. And we're very unhappy that Ratan was chosen as the chairman. And you had Rusi Modi, Darbari Seth, Ajit Kerkar, all of them thought that they were the best to be the chairman. But for several reasons, which if you ask me a question, I'll tell you. Not because Mr. Ratan was a Tata, not that because he had a surname, but he had this amazing vision, a scientific mind, courage, and as JRD said, amazing memory like him. And said he was most suited, and especially his young age, 52, 53, he said he's the right person to have a long tenure. And it's extremely important, long tenure, because he will have to navigate the ship of the Tatas through the tumultuous phase of economic liberalization and the transition. And therefore he became chairman. Now, if you ask me, we probably researched, deep dived, and there is no piece of information, there's no piece of anything written that we have not dug out. Okay, and he was very lonely in 1991 when he took over. He had the satraps working against him, which he said, almost about 3-4 years before he stepped down. He said, "When I took over, I didn't have many friends, and people thought that I don't have the capability of JRD and that I will run the conglomerate down." But he proved them wrong completely. So what did he do? In fact, there is something which is really unknown, let me tell you. That's because it is Ratan's own fault. Very reticent man.
Yes.
So he has not spoken about his own achievements. He brought together a conglomerate and made it like a federal government, but with a unitary bias. Okay? That means you give them the freedom to work in actual unison with a common goal and don't engage in internecine conflicts. Okay?
But did he feel like he had accomplished this, what you believe is his most significant contribution to the House of Tata?
No, I'll tell you something. You tell him that, sir, your achievements have been stupendous. The man will blush. Is like almost like a Greek god, the complexion he has. You continue with it, as I said, as I told somebody, a friend of mine, you continue with this compliment and he'll start biting his lips. Actually, he gets very nervous and embarrassed. But there are many things which surprised him. Because, let me tell you something, the much vilified government is much better in record keeping. The stupendous changes, the enormity of the changes that he brought about in the group has not been mapped or recorded anywhere. See, you have about more than 24 reports by Harvard University, the best of MBA institutes in the world. But they have only dealt with 1 or 2 components of his restructuring program, which I say, which according to me, it has 11 caterpillar legs of growth. They only identified only 2 or 3.
What are the other 9?
No, I'll tell you. You will have to go into the most interesting is the JRDQV award. Okay? Then the Tata business model. Okay? Then you have TCOC, that is a Tata Code of Conduct.
Yeah.
Then you have the GEC. Then you have the branding, that is the freedom to use the logo.
Yeah.
Now, everybody has talked about only JRDQV award. But this man, what he did, he brought in the TCOC. And he brought in, again, most important contribution, let me tell you, like most of the people don't talk about, is that when he took over in 1991, you'll be surprised to know that Tata Sons, the parent company or the holding company, had less shares in his flagship company called Tata Steel at that time, Tisco, less than what Birlas held in Tisco. Okay? So after 1991, Ratan came out and said, if we don't merge, if we don't increase our stakes, we are going to be eaten up by the multinationals. So he and his famous lieutenant called Soonawalla, N.S. Soonawalla, they hit upon several innovative schemes by which they increased the stake of these companies. That and through this mechanism, they brought in amazing cohesion. And let me put it like this to you. I don't think, there was a time when I surprised him. He took over as chairman Tata Motors in 1988. Okay. Now, he stepped down in 2012. Now, if you look at the growth, percentage growth of the top line from 1988 to 2012, but actually it should go up to 2016. Now you'll ask me why? Why 2016? That is because you look at a McKinsey report or any major reports, after an economic contraction that happened in 2008, it takes you 8 years for it to recover. Okay? Now, I mean, I'll wager with anybody. In fact, I wagered with him. I asked him, sir, can you tell me what is the percentage top line growth? He said, Thomas, I don't remember any of this. You know what? It kissed 20,000%. Will you believe it? He said, no, that's not possible. Then I said, sir, give me a blank check. She said, that I won't give you. So that's like, and I'll give you another thing. You know what? This man has not been recognized. I'll just give you what, I don't know if I should take an example, but that's the example I'd like to take. You heard about Jack Welch, the so-called, titan of GE.
Yes.
From 1981 to, to 2000. He was at the helm, that's about 19 years.
Yeah.
He grew his company from $27 billion to $130 billion.
Yeah.
And there you are talking about 361 odd %. You know, when RMT took over, he had a turnover, that's the top line, of $5.4 billion. He took it to $100 billion.
Yeah.
1,742% increase. And The Economist and Fortune would dub Jack Welch as the biggest thing that has happened to industry in the world. Compared to him and the other industrial leaders, to me, R&T is the Shahanshah of industrial leaders, but nobody says it. He's an Indian. So therefore, people don't recognize him. But I think he's not been recognized. But the world, even a person like Henry Kissinger has been talking about him in such glowing terms.
Yes.
I interviewed him for about 2.5 hours. He said he's like 2% of the best the world can ever give you. And he says most important is that, he says for Ratan, it is not business proposal that will motivate him. A social responsibility has to be fulfilled, and a business proposition will make that happen. What a profound statement.
No,
so there is so much to speak about this reticent
I know,
man.
700 pages of stories.
Without notes. That's without notes.
Of stories there. But you talked about something that I think many people recognize, and you said that he was a lonely man, especially in the early 90s when he was going through this phase of restructuring and reformation. But what about the period, especially the mystery period? What about the period post that? Did you have conversations about what he thought that had done to him personally in terms of reputation, and more importantly, what he believed the future would hold for the Tata Group post something like that?
See, Mr. Tata is made out of a different mold, let me tell you. When he took the decision to replace Cyrus Mistry, he doesn't like to use the word remove, or like the journalists say, sever him from Tata's. No, he didn't want to do that. He said he was replaced. Now, did he want to replace him? I've done extensive research, and not alone what he was speaking about. He really did not want to change him. So what did he do? He tried his best to bring in external elements who could help Cyrus Mistry rise up to the occasion, and also change his strategy so that the Tata Group would be able to perform better, move along the trajectory which he thought the corporation should move. But that did not happen for many reasons. So therefore he got Nitin Noria, the Dean of Harvard, to help him. I did about 6-7 hours of interview with Nitin Noria. He said there was only one intention of Mr. Ratan Tata to involve me in the group as a director. That is, to help Cyrus understand the complexities of his group. That is because, Mistry did not come with that kind of experience which is required from salt to software to steel. It's so complex. I mean, it's like almost like a nation for all practical purposes, If you look at the turnover and the GDP, will come somewhere about maybe 40, 50 or 60, depending on the year you take. And he supported it. Somehow, for some reason, maybe Cyrus must have got influenced by, the GEC, there's a General Executive Council. Interestingly, he actually employed or filled it with youngsters, okay? But Tata's a very traditional organization. And the GEC prior to, this is something which I analyzed, GEC prior to the GEC of Mistry had people like stalwarts, warriors like J.J. Irani, Krishna Kumar. And the most interesting thing, I did an analysis. the average age of the GEC under Cyrus Mistry was less than the experience of the earlier stalwarts. Now, how can somebody with age of 35, 36 talk to a veteran like J.J. Irani, and that's a brilliant PhD from Sheffield? You can't talk to him about Tata Steel, you know. So you need veterans to talk to veterans. So therefore, but yet he tried, and he tried to support him. He gave him the full weight of Tata Trust behind him. I'm not saying this, a lot of journals have said that. But for some reason, he was not able to rise to the occasion. And therefore, he says, you know, that's what Nitin Noria told me. He said, there comes a time when you have to take a decision, whether you will fulfill your fiduciary relationship with the millions of stakeholders you have, and also fulfill the goals which were enshrined by his forefathers in making the endowments to a Tata Trust, so that they can give back to society what they said should be done. So he said, do you take the painful decision because the performance of the corporation or companies are going down? So what will you do? So then he says he had to take the most painful decision. Now, did it cut both ways? I think, if you honestly ask me, it cut Mr. Tata much more than it cut Cyrus Mistry. It upset him to no end. You know, there was a small sub-chapter which I changed in this book. After his retirement, he wanted to play the piano. The corner, there was this piano. And there was a sub-chapter which I said, the piano goes silent. Then I removed it because, you know, he did not like that. He did not like that subtitle or, you know, the sub-chapter, because it was showing him in his most agonizing times. Believe me, some people outside do not know that it hurt the man who wielded the sword than the person who was removed with the sword. That's what it is. It's a very sad story. And he always used to tell me, Thomas, I feel very bad that I did not show him out the door like the Tata way. I couldn't do that. And we don't do this. We don't replace people.
So that was his regret?
But as I told somebody else, it was this inevitable, regrettable moment. He couldn't do anything but do it.
You know, as you pointed out, sometimes you do have to follow through on your fiduciary responsibility, which he thought that he was doing, even though it was a very difficult decision for him. But let's talk a little bit about the man, because, you know, while there is this public persona, there's very little that we actually know about him, because he chose to stay away from the public glare. He chose to lead a very private life. But what we do know is that he had a deep commitment to the things that he was passionate about, whether it was his love for animals or architecture or
empathy.
Yeah, but you know, what was Ratan Tata, the man, really about? I mean, simple, generous, sense of humor. A lot of people have said that, but you knew him in ways that many perhaps didn't.
See, he has a funny bone in him. He will play pranks. You know, when he was a student in Cornell, what he used to do is he used to call a lot of his friends who had the courage to fly with him in his Tripacer. He used to go up, switch off the engine and say, engine is flamed out. And then after about, maybe about 20 or 30 seconds, when they start screaming, he will switch on the engine. Okay, so that's what he is.
Was that really his first love?
Flight. Oh, flying was his first love. And always was. You know, even at the age of 80, 85, you show the man who may not be able to stand erect immediately, show him an F-16. He will jump up and say, you get me my jacket, let me go fly that. That is passion. And then in order, see, in the US at the time, you could only send $180 a day, sorry, a month. So that's what he got from home. And he had to pay for his flying classes. He pushed aircraft, he cleaned them, and then he also sold his cufflinks. That I told I narrated this incident. So he says at times it got insulting, but then he
sold his cufflinks, Ratan Tata.
Yes. What else? Because RBI would not allow you to send money to the United States. So, but he had a car too. So he had a funny bone, and then he'll make fun of you, and you know, he'll mimic Henry. He used to mimic Henry Kissinger. Oh, very
He was a
well.
good mimic.
Oh my God, you can't imagine. A great mimic, great mimic. And he'll, his sisters, I mean, we love dearly. They used to be at the receiving end of his, of his funny character. So that's, and it's very simple. Except for the suit he wore. That's because, if anybody saw him, 6 feet, more than 6 feet, glowing complexion, thick crop of hair, and very polite. And, he could actually melt any heart, men or women. That's it. And then it's so simple. I must have had hundreds of lunch at his place. And, from where we get the lunch? Taj? No. Across, Halakai, you have a post office,
Yes.
Halakai post office.
Yes.
On the right side, there is a dirty fast food shop, okay? And they give you bad French fries, but good pizza and Coke. That's what we used to have.
Well, I think that really explains what we've heard so often about the man, about his simplicity and his generosity as well. But, let's talk a little bit about the legacy that he thought that he was leaving behind. And I remember in an interview that we did with him, he said, I would want to be remembered for being someone who did my best and left the group in a much stronger place than I had inherited.
That's true. That's 100% correct.
So, and that.
He did. In fact, he has this famous annual general meet, of the AGMM, as we call it. He said, by 2022, I want them to, that is the top line, to go to $500 billion. Vertiginous growth will take a different kind of leadership. At present, I think it's going well, but under Cyrus, it had slowed down. So, did he leave a very strong organization? He did. And most importantly, I think one of his greatest achievements, it may be sacrilegious to say that. In my assessment that I've stated, I've got a subchapter called Connecting Centuries. And I've said, just as Jamshedji brought the Tatas to the country and brought to a population, Ratan brought Tatas to the world and making the group more popular among a larger section of the society when you look at it globally. So therefore, in a manner of speaking, it may be very difficult for the old Tata veterans to accept. I will put Mr. Tata maybe a little above any other Tata. No, let's look at it rationally.
That's quite a statement.
No, I can defend it. In 2004, if I get my statistics right, 20% of the revenue of the, I love a statement which he made. In Cornell, one of the weak bones, he's not a man who will boast, okay? In Cornell, he said, my foreign acquisitions were, quote, like the empire striking back. I love that. That's because he's very deeply patriotic man. And that patriotism came out. See, in 2004, it was about, from 2004 till 2012, and when he stepped down, 60% of the top line came from abroad. And let's look at it differently, okay? From the Queen to the cognoscenti in UK, to all the people who matter, they love Jaguar, Land Rover, okay? And they use it, right? Now, go back. Let's go back for a minute.
Yeah.
Largest employer, manufacturing employer in UK. When a Britisher wakes up, imagine they used to be our colonial masters. When they wake up, the morning cheer is brought by the 3 T's, what I call.
Yes.
What are the 3 T's? Tata, Tetley, tea. Okay? And when they get up and go out, if they're rich, if they travel in a Jaguar, it's owned by the Tatas.
Yeah.
And even if they don't, if they take a tram, the steel is made by Corus. So can you imagine, New York Times said it, I don't know the time I have, the New York Times said in 2007, Giridhar said in New York Times, made a fantastic statement. When Corus was acquired, he said the entire nation erupted with joy and a new sense of nationalism prevailed. And the sense of nationalistic goal he actually embedded in that acquisition was absolutely amazing. And what the New York Times said after that? India is known for its Maharajas and elephants. Soon India will be known for the Tatas.
Well, it certainly is the perfect and most fitting tribute to the man. I know we could continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we haven't even begun, but we're out of time. But we must continue, and we look forward to doing this with you again. But Mr. Matthew, once again, thank you so much for joining us here to take us through some of the untold stories of Ratan Tata. And there's plenty more. There's plenty more, but appreciate you joining us here.
Like Reagan said, you ain't seen anything yet.
You ain't seen anything yet. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of CNBC TV 18 Special. We'll see you again shortly. From all of us here, goodbye. Thanks for watching.